Sorry, guys. Give me 1 second. I threw up the wrong graphic.
Ready to go? Or
just 1 second.
Okay.
When this, what the hell? Why is that?
You're live now. Just go ahead.
okay. Welcome tonight to the City of Reading City Council meeting for July 21st, 2020. I'd like to start with a prayer and a pledge. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Mel. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. May we have a council member roll call, please?
Mr. Powell?
Here.
Mr. Gertz?
Here.
Mr. Lynn?
Here.
Mr. Albrecht?
Here.
Mr. Lindeman?
Here.
Mr. Fischescher?
Here.
And Mrs. Edichico?
Here.
I'd like to go ahead and open the meeting up to the public hearing for the 2021 budget. And Patrick, do you have something you want to start with, or?
Well, first I wanted to see if Carla had received any emails or any comment from the public regarding this over the past couple weeks. Has anybody had any feedback?
Nope.
I have not received any. I have not received any feedback.
Okay. Anything from you, Mr. Gertz? Did you hear anything?
No, I didn't, but the method that we do business, I don't foresee a lot of people being aware of the content. Was anything put at the library? So if somebody wanted to go look at it, Mr. Ross, that they could have looked at the budget?
Library isn't open right now.
Is there any opportunity for somebody to come to City Hall to get the budget to look at it? Do you know? Is that announced or put out on any news or anything for our website?
It was advertised, and I know after the last meeting, I think Mr. Powell and Ms. Chico both had people asking them, and I think that they probably email it to them directly. I saw online people were asking, but they didn't ask me directly for it.
Why-
I emailed it out to about 5 different people, Tony.
Okay. What kind of response did you get, Dave?
I received none.
Okay. I didn't get any others. I've had some casual discussions with some residents, but not in any depth. Look it over. I kind of looked over, not very carefully myself. I glanced at it. I didn't have a lot of time this past week. But go ahead, whatever else you want to do, Mr. President.
Okay, Mr. Ross, do you have anything else you want to add to that, or?
I mean, I can go over it now, or I can go over it later. I can go very high level right now if you'd like.
Yeah, go ahead at high level.
Sure. The anticipated revenue for next year and for updating for this year are both less than we received in last year. The biggest reason for that is COVID and earnings tax increases, or earnings tax losses. Sorry.
Yes.
But we did this year. We will have received definitely 2 additional sources of income, being the workers' comp rebate that we received earlier this year, and the MSD easement funds that we also received, and that is about $185,000 in additional money this year. I did send out this will be in my report, but there's also another potential to get $140,000 or so from the easement that Duke requires for their pipeline project. So that's another potential source of revenue that we will be receiving. And then we do have increases that are built into contracts that we do have with Arlington Heights for police and fire, as well as Amberley Village for paramedics. So we do have some other sources of income which are good for us that are built in. But if you look at the third page, I do budget us spending more than we bring in for this year and next year. Now, we carried over at the beginning of this year, we carried over a balance of $282,000 in the general fund, which is what keeps us in the positive after you factor those things in. But it will be a tighter rest of this year and next year. Helping with some of the expenditures, we had 2 police openings open up very quickly. Decided to only fill 1 at this time until we get a better handle on where we are. So we will have half of a year on 1 police officer that we won't be filling, and that amounts for about $40,000 for us for that one. And we have the same going on in public works. So we'll see some savings just by delaying the replacement of some employees that left. So that does help us on the expenditure side. But everything else, I mean, we're very tight. Again, 85 to 90% of our expenditures are on manpower. That being salaries and all their fringes. So we don't have a lot of discretionary spending built into our budget.
Right.
And that's been the same pretty much every year since I've been here.
Yeah.
So that's a very high level. One fund, that, potentially after this year, the 340 fund, we'll be paying off another bond this year. So the 340 fund opens up after this year for potential capital. It's not on here. Maybe Sabrina could chime in, which is, I can't remember exactly which one it is, the last payment, but it's a $75,000 payment that we won't have after this year in the 340 fund. So that fund, does open up, for potential for capital purchases, and helps us leverage if we do need to borrow money to do a capital project that council has a priority on.
Yeah, the 350K lease for around 76,000 this year, that'll open it up. Right now our balance in the fund is 202,000 in the 340 fund, just to let everybody know.
And then the other fund that is healthy, that we can't just spend however wherever we want, but we can use it, to leverage also road projects and road improvements. And we do have some salaries that come out of there for our road guys and supervisors. That's the street maintenance fund, and that reminding everyone we're receiving more revenue in there because the state increased the gas tax. So we'll be receiving probably $150,000 to $170,000 more per year. It went into effect the second half of last year. So this year will be the first year where we have a full amount on that. But at the beginning of it's a very healthy fund. So that's another source for potential road projects or road improvements that we could do out of that fund. That's all, Chris.
That was very high. That was very good. Very high look at it.
I had a couple
Hey,
questions.
Go ahead, Mr. Gertz.
Yeah, I was looking at the first page, Mr. Ross, and at the bottom of the total revenues, I'm seeing that you're projecting $8,703,000, but I know we had that conference call the other day where we're still about $350,000 short in the earnings tax, and then we are also projecting, if I remember correctly from what Sabrina told us, in the real estate taxes of about a 10% less than we had received in the past. And I'm trying to look at that, but the revenue for 19 was $8,721,000. You're projecting, I guess, for the current year. Is that for the end of the year, 8,577? Is that what I understand that bottom line to be, total revenues?
Yes.
And then now you're coming up with 8,703,000. And I didn't look at each line item, but I was concerned that it might be a little bit overly optimistic. I see that the charges for services are down 550,000, but I'm curious because I see the transfers, I assume, are the earnings tax funds, the 6 million.
Yeah, that's the biggest. I'm projecting 150,000 more next year than this year, anticipating that we're going to be working a full year. Now we won't get as much for the people that are filing their 2020, but we have every year other than this year. This is kind of an anomaly. You know, our businesses have been growing. And if you look at the 2019, we transferred 6.4 million, but we brought in significantly more than that. We didn't transfer all that we potentially could have. So that's why I think 6.5, I think, is a doable number next year. Because if you look back on 2018, we transferred in 6.726 from the earnings tax. So I think I'm being fairly conservative, hopeful conservative, I guess, would be the best way to describe that.
Well, I hope you're right. I'm a little more concerned that, of course, I didn't look that carefully in depth on the defense side, but I know that Mr. Albrecht brought up that Mr. Courtney, I spoke to him. I guess he's pretty short-handed. I think 2 people have retired or left, and they have not been replaced. I know he's looking for some help. And as you say, we're not going to replace currently 1 police officer. Is that what you're saying? Are you saying half a year? Because it's more than $40,000.
I missed part of your question. Sorry.
I'm saying that the police department, you said you weren't going to hire, but it's more than $40,000 a year for a police officer. What's that number all about?
It's roughly, the average is about $80,000 a year. So if we don't replace them for half of the year, then that's $40,000 a year we'll save
in the year. Then is that what you're saying?
Correct.
What about the service department? What are we doing there?
Basically the same thing. We're kind of we did replace 1 person early. But we have not replaced Mr. Boguski yet.
Okay.
We replaced. We hired early and knowing that Kevin Knisner was retiring, we hired and promoted early. We just have not planned to replace Mr. Boguski yet. We will, but we're not. We're going to wait on that. And I told Daryl that. Earlier this week, actually.
Okay. Well, I was just trying to get a chance to look at it, and I haven't had a chance to get into it in depth.
But I mean,
it appears to me that you got the real estate taxes without that 10% reduction in there. When I looked at the revenue source on the last whatever pages. Yeah.
Well, I was thinking we were going to be closer to 300,000. And that's why for next year, I moved it down to 275.
I see. Well, I guess I got the budget. You're at 310. Where are you picking up? There's picking up 35,000 from carryover or something. Or where are you getting that? You got 310 as a budgeted year for 221. Where are you picking up the 35,000?
That one should have been 275 over there as well. Yeah.
Okay. Well, as I say, I haven't been able to pick it to pieces. I only spent a little time looking at it, but I think it's a bit optimistic in my opinion. Hopefully it's true. That's what the commission will tell us, because if it doesn't fly with them, they'll turn it down. So.
And
what we budget, as you're well aware, what we budget, and even what we get certified, if we don't have the revenue, you can't spend it. You know.
Exactly. That's what I mean. Even though this is for next year, when we do the appropriations next year, if we don't have the money, we're not going to be able to appropriate that much money. So That's why we have to keep on top of it through the rest of the year and as we go into 2021 next year.
Well, if we ever get to where we can have meetings face to face, maybe we can beat this thing down a little more and look at it as a whole so council can see it. Did you ever, it's an aside from what of the budget, but did you ever get me the information I was requesting for having the list of the monies that were grants put into the FEMA fund?
Did you ask me for that?
Only 4 times.
Okay.
Every council meeting I've asked about it, I've asked somebody to check on it. I would like to get the amount of money that got from grants, like how much was a grant, for instance, that we got from Duke. I know we moved it back for redoing the World War I memorial. I don't remember the amount, but that came through. Wasn't that put in the FEMA fund, and we moved it out and paid the expenses?
Yeah, that was 10,000 we received for that.
Yeah, I guess what the list is ins and outs of the FEMA fund. Is that what you're looking for? Money's in and
Here,
money's out.
I'll get with the auditor who has I don't have access to her program to pull it up like she can. So I'll get with her and we'll put together a spreadsheet like I do for some of the other funds.
Okay, and I'd like to have an update on 340 fund as well from all the expenses and so forth. I know that I'm anticipating that, as was pointed out by the auditor, that we hopefully will have we'll free up some money that since we'll be paying off debt. But at the same I'd still like to know where we stand, and then also if you could give me an updated breakdown of all the obligations we've created for the monies that we have spent on various road projects, that grants and so forth. I know it shows we got dollars in there, but we spent $1 million for the infrastructure to prepare for the opening of the new school. So I think that's where those bonds are in there. I guess I know we issued all those bonds. Bonds for.
Yes.
I'd like to get a breakdown.
I'll send an update of the 340 in the month-to-date fund, and then I'll start sending Patrick over some of the information about the 401 fund so we can collaborate on that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Any other comments from anyone? Then I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing for this evening. I'm going to go ahead and wait on the minutes. I'm going to go to audience participation and ask Mr. Inix. Is that how you say your last name, Inix?
Yes, very close.
Very. What is it then? Can you say your name and what you do for us?
My name is Jason Enix, and I am very proud to be the new superintendent of Reading Community City Schools. And I'd like to thank the council for the opportunity to be with you tonight.
Okay. Well, you're welcome on that. Was there anything else that you wanted to address council on, or just the introduction here, or?
Here, just a quick introduction and a little bit of information about what's going on in the school district. I was hired officially on June 1st. Originally, it was supposed to be July 1st to join the district, but was moved back a month, in part due to the circumstances of what we are facing right now, certainly in education, and looking ahead to all the challenges that are facing us coming up for this 2020-2021 school year. So I have been with the district now since June 1st, but was hired at a board meeting back on March 4th. So I've really been able to start transitioning a lot sooner than June 1st, although the transition certainly went much different than expected with, really 2 weeks after I was hired, everything shut down. So at this point, I have still never been in the district with students and staff. And in most cases, I have not met a lot of the staff in person, as you can suspect. So it is not the ideal transition into the district, but I can say that those that I've had a chance to work with and be in contact with, it has been a very welcoming environment and a chance to really work in a great place. And I'm looking forward to getting the next school year up and running. I am most recently or previously the assistant superintendent for Beavercreek City Schools. Spent 4 years in the Beavercreek district. And prior to that was the principal of Lebanon Junior High School, and spent most of my career in West Carrollton City Schools as a teacher and assistant principal. So again, very, very happy to be in the district, and looking forward to all the things that the district has ahead of it. On a personal level, my wife and I are both educators. She is an elementary principal in Kettering City Schools. So it is an interesting time for the two of us right now as we are anticipating the beginning of the school year. And between the two of us, we have 4 kids. Her 2 kids are 28, 26. I have a 20 and a 14-year-old, and we have just celebrated our first anniversary. So we're very excited about everything that's happening for us, and looking forward to getting started with the school year. And I know that is on everyone's mind. I know that. if I had a dollar for every time I said I don't know in the last few weeks and months about what's coming up for school districts, I would be a pretty wealthy man right now. But really quickly, again, just what's going on in the school district. Again, since really the beginning of June, there's been a lot of work that's been done on 2 different fronts. And I know as a public entity, as council yourself in the city of Reading, we all took some hits in public service with state budget reductions and all of the concerns that are hitting us financially. Really, the 3rd day on the job for me on June 3rd, I presented options for our Board of Education to consider that were totaling $720,000 worth of reductions, and an option for $900,000 of reductions that we've had to undergo as a part of a savings plan, as again a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and the state budget reductions. And that was a very difficult thing to do, obviously, as brand new to the district, and it had implications across the district and for many people. So it's a challenging time, but at the same time, we did some creative work and tried to minimize the impacts on the district as much as possible, with really the purpose of maintaining the integrity of the district. And even though there were difficult moments and it impacted a number of staff members and programs, we were able to come out of that, I think, in a pretty good place, where much of the district obviously is remaining intact. And I'd like to appreciate and give thanks to the Board of Education and our administrative team for a lot of work in a very short period of time to make that happen for us. So that was our first challenge right away. And then, of course, we started tackling the reopening of school plan that, frankly, took a little bit longer to get started as we were awaiting guidance from the governor and the Ohio Department of Health. And that came to us on July 2nd. And from that time forward, it's really been all reopening planning all of the time. So we are currently in the process of getting ready to present tomorrow night at our Board of Education meeting the Reading Community City Schools reopening plan. There's been a lot of work done with doing collaboration with the staff advisory team. We had a parent advisory committee meeting. Both of those were virtual, much like this. So appreciate the support, feedback, and collaboration of those 2 groups. We've done a community survey regarding thoughts about this upcoming school year. And then last Wednesday night at our regularly scheduled board meeting, I presented the research and the recommendations from a number of different organizations about how we return to school safely, as well as a few different models for how we could consider coming back to school. And so that was the beginning of the kind of the board's involvement with providing feedback and having a board discussion last week. And then from that point forward, I've been working on the reopening plan to present to the board tomorrow night. There will be no board action tomorrow night. This is simply the draft copy of the plan. We will then intend to do a community forum via Google Meet next Tuesday evening. Time to be determined. We anticipate that probably to be around 6:30 or so, but it will be an opportunity for people to submit questions in advance. And we will be able to do a kind of a question and answer remotely through a Google Meet, so that we can answer some questions related to the plan. At this point, we have a special board meeting planned for next Wednesday night as well. That would be for board action on the reopening plan. And then from that point forward, we will start implementing the plan as it is approved. And we'll be looking forward to getting the school year started at a revised calendar date of August 31st. That was approved at the board meeting last week. So again, there's a great number of things going on right now. I will tell you one of the more exciting things that's happening is seeing our students and coaches that are in the building right now. We've got our athletes that have been able to be back working with our coaches in kind of a stair-stepping process to get back into athletic training and working with teams. So we're getting ready, presuming that the Ohio High School Athletic Association permits it. We'll be getting ready to go full speed on August 1st. We're still awaiting that guidance, but we are certainly hoping to get our sports teams back up and running and looking forward to a fall season. And on that note, I'd like to, on behalf of the district, thank the council for going forward with the contract that we have to utilize facilities. That obviously is a great step forward for us as a district to be able to get ready for a fall season and the upcoming school year. And again, I'd like to thank the council and appreciate your support with that as well. So with that, it's again a brief introduction of myself and things that are going on in the district. And again, if you are interested tomorrow evening in tuning into our board meeting, we are streaming that live as well. I will be presenting the reopening plan tomorrow evening, and of course, following that, we'll have a week of feedback from the public, and we'll be looking forward to a reopening plan, hopefully moving forward following next week's special board meeting.
So what in your past prepared you for this type of a start to your superintendency? I'll tell you.
That's a great question, Mr. Nesbitt.
A lot of
it's
innovation here, right?
I'm sorry?
A lot of new innovation.
Yes. So I guess the answer to that question is, in my previous job in Beavercreek, as the assistant superintendent, I really did have a lot of interactions throughout the entire district. It's a large district. My role really was in curriculum, really part of my role, but I also did a lot of work with our HR department, worked with our superintendent on kind of the district leadership perspective, and really spent a lot of time working with building principals. So, I really was fortunate to have a variety of job responsibilities previously that really has led me to this role, in which, as a superintendent of a smaller district, you really do have your hands almost in everything anyway. So it was good preparation. And of course, being a building principal is probably even the best preparation, because as a principal, you really are kind of a stopping point for everything in a building. And you are in a very much a decision-making role. As I had a staff of almost 90 at Lebanon Junior High. And as the principal, you're responsible for all things that are a part of that building. So this is another layer of that from a district perspective. But again, both of those roles are I think, the best of circumstances to prepare for this. But I will tell you, no one in this profession was prepared for this. And it's a challenge that, myself and colleagues throughout the area, across the state and around the country are really wrestling with right now, as to how we can get schools back in session safely and get our students back in the buildings so that we can educate, and not just in academic subjects, but all of the things that public education does to support students, social emotional health, athletics, clubs, sports, relationships, and everything that goes into being a student. We're looking forward to having students back to begin that again. We've missed them.
Well, thank you for coming tonight. Anyone have any questions, or we can?
Chris.
Yes, go ahead.
Chris.
Yes, Mr. Don.
I just want to welcome Mr. Enix and hope that in the future we can work very closely with him and the school board so that we can improve the whole community.
Okay.
I agree with Don. I want to welcome you, and as a member of council, I look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And again, on behalf of the district, I am obviously new to the district, but I am looking forward to working with council. And obviously there's a mutual beneficial relationship to be had between the city and the school district, as we are very interconnected in so many different ways. And I look forward to being able to spend some time with you. I wish the first time we had met would have been able to be in person. I will look forward to when that does happen. But certainly feel free to reach out at any time, and I will certainly hope to be able to do the same with all of you. I'm looking forward to meeting with you and working with you here in the future.
I too want to welcome you, Mr. Enix, Mr. Gertz. I'm in Ward 2, and I'm very impressed with your presentation. I appear to be quite qualified for your job, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for coming tonight. We will go ahead and go on with the rest of our agenda then at this point. No one else from the audience, no other public response, right, Carla, to questions or, okay. With that, I'll go to the minutes. Unless there's any objection, the minutes for the council meeting on April 7th, which was a regular session, are approved as distributed. Those minutes are approved. Unless there's any objection, the minutes for the council meeting on April 14th, a legislative session, are approved as distributed. Those minutes are approved. Unless there's any objection, the minutes for the council meeting on April 21st, a regular session, are approved as distributed. Those minutes are approved. Unless there's any objection, the minutes for the council meeting on April 28th, a legislative session of the whole, are approved as distributed. Those minutes are approved. In May, we started going just to two meetings a month, both all regular meetings. So on May 5th, the minutes for that meeting, unless there's any objection, are approved. Those minutes are approved. The minutes for the council meeting on May 19th, also a regular session, are approved unless there's any objection, are approved as distributed. Those minutes are approved. Unless there's any objections, the minutes for the council meeting on June 2nd are approved as distributed. Those minutes are approved, and unless there's any objection, the minutes for the council meeting on June 16th, a regular session, are approved as distributed. And those minutes are approved. Any communications? No communications. We will go to council committee reports. Finance Chairman, Mr. Gertz.
Well, I think we covered the budget. That would be the primary thing in the finance committee right now. Frankly, I didn't get a chance to get into, I don't know how we'll have a meeting. I guess I'd have to put notices out or do one of these Zoom things. I don't sense that face-to-face meetings are yet desirous. Maybe is the simplest word I can put, but I will not be available for a few days here. I have some business I have to take care of, but if both Randy and Don want to get together sometime, we could try to set up another time for a finance committee meeting. I guess the budget has to be, it's all finished. I think it's got to go down to the budget commission by, I think Mr. Ross said by the end of the month, I got an extra few days kicked into it. It used to be on the 20th, but I think it's the end of the month, if I'm correct. He can correct me if I'm wrong. But other than that, right now, I'm still trying to analyze, whether or not we're going to need some additional funding. We did have a meeting. I'm not going to steal the thunder of the treasurer. We do have these conference calls each week after they've done some investigation. I'm sure they're going to report on the revenue sources. But other than that, I don't have anything else. I may have some other comments later in the meeting, though.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Gertz? Thank you, Mr. Gertz. Utilities, Lands, and Buildings, Chairman, Mr. Lindeman.
Thank you, Chris. Talked to Bennett Kotler. He's the manager for the bench project. And the last time I talked to him, I told him that if anything unusual stand out would come about, please give me a call. And so I've not heard from him. I appreciate Patrick sending out pictures. I assume that everybody on council received those. And it's been just going along very well. I feel sorry for some of the workers out there, so it's so hot. They say it's going to go on for another 5 weeks for sure. And then after that, the restoration will begin and they'll be planting trees and that sort of thing. I did have a question for Patrick if they have included any kind of a boat launch or anything like that. I know that they did that when they were working up in Sharonville. I think it would be a nice thing, but do you have any word on that, Patrick?
It wasn't including the plans, but I mean, I can check into having a boat launch there. Yeah.
That would be nice. I don't know. I know that I went down, I've been going down regularly. And at one time I saw the Commodore, I believe, he goes by, with some people down there. And I think they were looking at that particular spot for a boat launch. I did not talk to them or have not heard anything from anybody else about that, but I did make a note of it to bring it up.
I don't know what it takes for a boat launch. I mean, they will be able to, I mean, Don, did you go down there in person yet? I know you said you were going to.
I did.
So, I mean, they're going to be fairly close down, you know, at the bottom of that bench. So,
Have you ever been to one of their boat launches on the creek before this?
Yes, I have.
Been on a bank, that steep bank to get that. This is going to be so much nicer.
Yes. I actually, I mean, I think some of the other councilmen, I think maybe Dave Powell for sure, have taken the opportunity to be part of the yacht club. Take a little, we were in canoes going down the Mill Creek. It was very nice.
Yeah, I'm going to be talking to Bennett tomorrow, so I'll bring it up to him and see what he thinks. If I mean, he might already be like, oh, what they're doing now will be very easy for us to get boats in and out right there. So I'll talk to him and see what he thinks.
Thanks, Patrick. I appreciate it.
And I do want to echo, I sent you those pictures and Don's been there in person, but like I said in my email, it doesn't do it justice seeing in the pictures. When you stand there, you're like, whoa, wow. You know, a lot
800 truckloads, huh?
A lot has been excavated and a lot of rock has been brought in. So they're working. So.
Anything else, Mr. Lindeman?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Okay.
I have a question for Don.
Go ahead.
I had heard something, I believe, on the news about Rumpke possibly altering schedules because of COVID. I guess there's extra waste. Maybe pickup times were going to be earlier in the mornings. Have we heard anything about that, Don?
Well, I think probably you should be asking Patrick that question. I'm embarrassed to say no, I have not heard anything. The thing that I was going to bring up later on was how Rumpke Waste and Recycling was recognized as one of U.S. best managed companies. I'll talk more about that at the end of the meeting, but Patrick should know more about what you're saying.
I saw what you were talking about, Dave, and I thought that, but they have not contacted myself to ask for that, because if we do have a contract with them that does have, you know, the built-in hours, so they would need to come to us to talk to us before they could just say, hey, we're coming out at 3 a.m. So they have not approached me at this time, but I did see that article that you're talking about.
Okay, thanks, Pat.
They might be doing other jurisdictions, just, you know, maybe not here.
Mr. Gertz?
Don, I want to compliment you for staying on this, and you've been working at it, and I know it was a project of about $375,000 or more, and I've been waiting for several years to get this thing going because it's in my ward, and it's primarily a boat launch sounds great, and all these other things gone great, but what the real purpose of it is to contain and hopefully reduce the flooding, and it isn't going to solve all the problems, but it's a start. And I still want to thank Mr. Ashbrook, who got this thing moving way back several years ago, 3-4 years ago, and I'm glad to see it coming to fruition. And hopefully it'll help if we run into another heavy rain of some sort. And again, I think it's something that's a very positive thing, but I'd like to wish I had gotten accomplished a little sooner than later. But anyway, it's being accomplished. I appreciate that fact, Don. Thanks.
Well, I appreciate that, but certainly mine was the very smallest part of it, and we'd rather have it done right than in a hurry. So it has taken a long time, but it's just really nice to see that there is light at the end of the tunnel, and it will be a very nice project. Well done.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Lindeman. Zoning, Plan and Environment Chairman, Mr. Powell.
Thank you, Chris. Just to follow up on what I brought up at the last meeting, as far as planning for some traffic calming measures on Thornridge, I had a good conversation with the Safety Service Director about that. The other thing I'd want to bring up is sometime back I brought up about the litter that is the grocery ads that show up every week, and that seems to be an ongoing issue. So I would like to, further pursue that to try and get them to get them on the property or don't deliver them at all, because, so many of them are winding up in the gutters. The other thing I had also mentioned a few meetings ago about a constituent had contacted me about speeding on Maple, and I wanted to thank the police department for putting the speed trailer up on Maple to kind of remind people of their speed when they go up Maple. So that's all that I have. Thank you.
Was there any updates?
Dave, if I can
from-
just make,
Yeah. Go ahead, Don.
just want to make one comment, Dave. The gentleman that delivers those store ads, I was out purposely to take a look and follow up a little bit on that. And on a very windy day after he had delivered them, and they were in the driveway, I saw a couple of them, because of the wind, it's picked up and actually blown out into the street. So, he may be trying to do the best he can, and it just happens with wind, etc., that sometimes they wind up in the street.
Yeah, and I understand that, but back in the day when it was the quote unquote door store, they would actually be hooked on your doorknob, and they would not blow into the street then. Now,
Right.
and I understand, labor costs money, and I'm sure it's a whole lot cheaper to drive around and throw them out of your car. But on the other hand, if you do have wind and the people don't pick them up in a timely fashion, they wind back out in the street, wind up in the gutters, wind up in the storm drains, and get ran over and just look unsightly. And, frankly, it needs to stop.
I think the other problem is that there's not a lot of weight to those things anymore. When it was a door store, you probably had another 4 or 5 ads that came every week. Because I can remember Furrows used to use them all the time. But now it's only a few pages, like Aldi's ad is only 1 page or 1 sheet of paper. Kroger's is probably about 4. So there's no weight to those things. So that's the reason they're blowing around. I think if people, residents as a whole, just kind of pay attention. If they're out in the street, go out and get it and throw it away. Yeah, it's not really asking that much. I've done it on a regular basis here. So, maybe
the issue that I'm having, and I agree that the door store was a lot lighter or a lot heavier back in the day, but these advertisers are paying them money to get the ads in front of people. And if they wind up in the gutter, the advertisers are just throwing their money away. So, there's got to be a better way to do it, to where, the advertisers can get what they want and we don't have to put up with the stuff in our gutters.
If I don't receive them, but is there a number on them that we can contact and maybe ask them to at least get them towards the porch if they are throwing them out of a car, or explaining the situation that they're ending up in gutters and in the streets?
Going back to probably, it was probably April, maybe. I had some contact with a gentleman there that I believe he said he was like a manager for distribution or something. I believe I still do have his phone number. So I was going to contact him again and see what we can do to improve the situation.
Okay. Yeah, I just wonder if there was any updates on what Amberley Village is doing from the last meeting.
Oh, I was going to save that for the other business, but if you
Okay,
guys would
that's
like
great.
that now.
No, that's fine. We can wait till then. Any other questions for Mr. Powell? Thank you, Mr. Powell. Laws and Contracts Chairwoman, Ms. Edichico.
Thanks, Chris. I have no report for this evening.
After that good lead in, you have no report. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Public Health and Safety Chairman, Mr. Fischescher.
Had to turn my mic on. Thank you, Chris. Hamilton County EMA will be upgrading the outdoor warning systems over the next 3 weeks, started yesterday. During that process, you'll probably hear the sirens go off once in a while, and it should be brief. They will be monitoring the weather. So if there is severe weather possible, they will avoid activating the signs during that severe weather time. Just a reminder that these sirens are for outdoor warning devices and are not meant to be heard indoors. For indoor alerting, you should be signing up for Alert Hamilton County, which is a quick and easy way to get more than 40 weather alerts sent straight to your phone or your email. If you'd like to sign up, go to www.alerthc.org. This website can also be found on the city's website. From the fire department, the chief's vehicle, while being used as a medic response vehicle, was involved in an auto accident during a run on July 6th, resulting in injury to firefighter paramedic Kunkel and significant damage to the vehicle. Mr. Kunkel is now home and recuperating, and we wish him a speedy recovery. As for the car, today it was towed for further evaluation, but it looks like it's probably going to end up being totaled. Fire department does want to remind everyone with these extremely dry conditions, they urge everyone to use extreme caution with recreational fires. And I do have one other thing, Chris, for later on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fischescher. Service Chairman, Mr. Albrink. Your mic's not on, Mr. Albrink.
Sorry, hold on. It's a dance we play, so we don't have echoes. Hold on.
Yeah, right.
Am I on? Am I on?
Yeah.
Hold on. I'm so sorry, guys.
Oh, no. Okay, thank you, Mr. President. The service department is in the process of painting stop bars and crosswalks, which is what they do around this time of the year every year, which is right before school usually starts, which is why they do that. So you'll probably see them around town nice and bright. They're continuing to mulch and cut up the limbs and branches that people are putting out as they continue to take care of their property. So we're thankful for that. And I guess I just want to re-echo once again the need for some more people up at the service department. Patrick, did you say that we actually did, in effect, hire somebody to replace Kevin Knisner earlier this year?
It was the end of last year.
Okay, so we are in reality 2 down from what
No, we're one down. John, Mr. Boguski's spot. That's it.
That's the only one?
Correct.
Okay. Well, again, I guess they're really in need of a mechanic because they only have one, and he was just recently on vacation. So I know it's tough finding money for that as well as other things that's needed, but hopefully we'll continue to give our attention to that and get somebody in there as soon as possible, and that's it.
All right, no questions. Thank you, Mr. Albrink. And Recreation Chairman, Mr. Lynn.
Thank you very much. Just to report on the pool, everything seems to be going very well with the new rules that we have in place. Everybody's bringing their own furniture down there, bringing their own food and drink, and it doesn't seem to be a problem. Everybody's cooperating. We're not sure when we're going to close the pool yet. The 3 managers that we have down there, 2 are teachers, 1's a college student. So they got to find out when their school starts. As the superintendent says, it's kind of strange when schools are going to start or not. So we're trying to work out their schedule to see how long the pool can stay open. And of course, the sports starting and all that kind of stuff for our lifeguards. Today we have I have an ordinance on the floor. It'll be the second reading. Again, it's to purchase 3 drinking fountains. It's supposedly going to go to Canic and Hilltop and Voorhees, so Reading Park specifically. I hope that you support this. Also, we're asking you that we buy the lawnmower. It's a Turf Tiger, which is just a newer version of the old one that we have, so we can use parts and exchange the 2. So that's the reason we picked that mower. Again, the money was transferred last time we had a meeting. So, and this is something the committee and I talked about in January. We looked at finances, the money's there, I believe, and I just ask you to support the parks at this time and vote for this ordinance. That's all I have.
All right, thank you, very much, Mr. Lynn.
Just a quick comment on
Go
that.
ahead.
I do want to support the mower, but I was concerned about the change in the price, and I did talk to someone about that, and it went from a gas operated unit to a diesel, is why it went from 10,000 to 16,000. But I believe that'll probably be much more efficient. I'm not sure we need water fountains because they're not going to be able to put them in until the fall, but I do want to support the purchase of the mower because I think it's going to be needed. I guess either go for it all or don't go for it all at all. So, but I don't know whether Tom investigated the need for the water fountain.
It's something our committee discussed, and it's a future thing. I do believe that someday that these drinking fountains will be used again. I know during COVID at this time that they're shut down, but I'm always thinking for the future. This is a need that the parks have. The drinking fountains were not vandalized. They're just old. They're not working. So we like to have drinking fountains for the future in our parks. So that's why my committee supported this early in January, and I'm trying to get it done now that I've looked at the budget and it seemed to have money there to do it. That's all I have.
Chris, just a comment.
Yes. Go ahead.
One, we don't pass this ordinance soon enough, we're not going to be able to use the lawnmower at all. And when I'll repeat what I talked to Mr. Courtney about. He said that probably those installation of those water fountains would not take place until probably late summer, early fall. And so they wouldn't probably be put in use until next year anyway. So hopefully the COVID-19 will be in the past. So I would support this.
All right. Thank you for that. Any other comments from Mr. Lynn? Thank you, Mr. Lynn, for your comments, for your report. I will go to, I'm going to skip new business right now and just go keep with reports. Go to Safety Service Director, Mr. Ross.
Oh, thanks, Chris. Let's see. I already went over the budget. There is an ordinance on the floor tonight for IT improvements. I'm reading the ordinance, and I'll read out loud for people at home what's going to be done with this. This is going to replace and consolidate all the servers for every department. Some of these will be consolidated, but we are going to be replacing every server for that is auditor, tax, administration, water, police, fire. So these are things that need to be done on a fairly regular basis regardless. We are going to be replacing the existing, the obsolete auditor's PC. This also served as kind of the payroll server. It's it was set up a long time ago, but what we're replacing is much better, and Sabrina can echo that for me. We're going to be replacing our network with a modern unified system for modern speeds. And then we're going to be replacing our outdated email system. And as a part of that, in talking with Mr. Powell about a couple topics, he did ask about the ability of the elected officials to have a Reading, Ohio email address, and that can definitely be done. So everybody, that's elected official can have their own Reading. You're not forced to, but you can have, a separate email. Mr. Powell was interested in, he thought it would be much easier for public records to keep some of those things separate. So the bench project's already been talked about. I want to talk about two things regarding Duke Energy. One, their operations will be going back to normal starting.
You're on mute now, Mr. Ross.
Sorry.
That's
What
okay.
that means is that disconnections will recontinue next month. I'm part of a collaboration where we speak about community-wide issues, and that was the biggest topic of conversation. And Duke does have several payment arrangement plans and items for people. So if they are struggling, if we have people in the community, don't be afraid to reach out to Duke. Their president, Amy Spiller, said that they can go up to 9 months in a payment arrangement for your gas and electric bill. So I hope, if there's somebody listening that is having a problem with their Duke bill, think it's too much because they've been laid off or whatnot, reach out to them. They are doing payment arrangements, but next month they will be starting their disconnections. The other one is easements that they are going to that they need for their pipeline. I sent you over a couple weeks ago the first draft of that. Now there's going to be a slight change in the Nivison property, and I didn't see if Mr. Stevenson was on here.
He is.
Yes. Dave will look through that, but one of my biggest concerns with an easement at the Nivison site was future development inhibiting a rail spur, because the easement's going to be up, on the railroad side of the property, which that's not a big issue. But when we did have a company that was looking at it, one of the benefits for that site is they could have a rail spur come off of that. And so I expressed very early on, and with Gary Hebler, who's president of their gas division, and I think he might have already been out to a meeting before, was, hey, I don't feel comfortable saying, yeah, we want to give you an easement here, because we could be hurting ourselves down the line if a company wants to put, their pipe or their rail spur here or there. And I just found this out, Dave, so I'll have to have you review some of the language, but they are going to include separate language in there that says, when the city of Reading or future development needs a rail spur, they will come back in and put in what's required, because they talk to, I think is it Norfolk Southern, that rail line, but they talk to, what's required as far as, what's the depth. So they're very familiar with that. I don't have the language yet, Dave, but when we do, so that one, ideally, Duke would be able to come and explain it to you guys directly. But for now, if you guys want to review that, they've staked the site adjacent to the public garage. There are stakes and down at the Nivison site, so you can kind of get a visual in person for where the areas are and that is for the pipeline. I'll let Dave give an update on that later. And preliminary number that they had sent over, I don't think it's accurate from what I sent over to you. I think it's going to be a little bit more than that, but that's also negotiations that, you guys could ask for more as a council, or they already increased it from after I asked them a question about it. So I don't have that many answers on it other than what I sent you. And when I get an updated drawing for the Nivison, I will send that over to you as well. The last thing, and Mr. Powell brought this up, was Thornridge Drive. And as I mentioned, it was either the very beginning of this year or late last year. What I would have liked to have done, if we weren't in the middle of a pandemic, is to invite everybody from Thornridge to a meeting to explain to them what because we have not engineered anything yet. If you've been up in that area, you'll notice that they're still surveying the streets. So what I really wanted to do was invite the residents of Thornridge to, as an information, like this is what we have a grant for and a loan for. It is to widen it by a couple feet, put in all new curbs, catch basins, aprons, full depth repair on the road, and water main for the entire length of it. But one of the bigger items that I know that and I want people to know up front what we're doing. And council could say, we don't want to do that. We don't want to widen. But all those right-of-way trees, the majority of those will have to go. When we're widening and putting in new curbs, those trees are way too big. Even if we weren't talking about a project, those trees are way too big for between the sidewalk and the curb. But what I'm thinking is we put together a letter explaining what the city's intent is for the project. And we have that letter delivered to everybody on Thornridge. And then we ask them to give us their feedback, positive, negative, questions, comments, because everybody up there wants it widened. Most people up there say, hey, I want it widened. But as Dave said, they also don't want a drag strip. So I've already put it in the back of the mind of our engineer to start looking into traffic calming measures up there that we could incorporate. And I've just been brainstorming myself. There's from Bolser to Furman Road, it's about a half a mile, that whole length. So I was one area where we could potentially do is about 1,200 feet or a quarter mile. We find a spot that works well, and we add a crosswalk there, a midway point, and that would certainly slow people down. One member of the Public Works didn't mention speed humps, not bumps. He's talking about the speed humps. If you go over in Hyde Park, some of those areas, if you ever driven around there, you'll see some of the more gradual humps. That's an idea. We already have permanent speed radars for that area as well. But it's a big project. It's a nearly $2 million project. That's a half grant, half loan. And, we want to get input earlier than later. So that's why, like I said, if we were not having COVID, we could say, hey, come invite everybody from Thornridge to come to council. We'll explain what we're thinking, and then you guys can give feedback. And then ultimately, council, you guys are the ones that award the project. So if you do not want XYZ incorporated into a project, or you want XYZ, ultimately, you guys are the ones on that. But those areas that I did talk about are generally what the project budget was included. But like I said, I would like to send out a letter to everybody on Thornridge explaining these are what we're doing, why we're doing. This is what will happen as a result of it. Please send back your feedback. And I don't know a better way to do it. That's just one idea I had.
Patrick, have you considered putting an invitation for Koenig Park? Because a lot of times when one person asks a question in a meeting, it strikes a chord with somebody else that brings up another issue. And I'm thinking that you could probably accommodate quite a few people down at Koenig Park Pavilion, separated properly with the microphone. I mean, I don't think it has to be a regular council meeting.
No, I wasn't planning on doing it at a council meeting like my idea. It would be a different night. That's potential. I mean, right now with, the surge, I didn't want to be encouraging people for us to be inviting a large gathering ourselves. But we could break up the street. We don't have to do it all in one night either. We could do it over the, 4 nights, and break up, the street into 25% are invited this night, 25% are invited that night. Yeah, that's a bigger room or bigger area down at Koenig Park.
I will say that I ran into a couple of people at church, and I called you and got information. And when I repeated that information to them, they were very appreciative to know something that's going on, what the possibilities are, and concerns about, well, what are they going to do? Are they going to just do what they want to do? So I think it'd be a great idea to have that meeting of either the letter with a response or in person.
The other thing I think we really need to discuss, and I know Dennis is going to hear this, and I spoke to the mayor about this already, is, I mean, it's a narrow street, and I think I'm not saying I feel one way or another, but I think it's worthy of a discussion to discuss if we want to keep the roll curbs that they have up there or do box curbs. I think it's worthy of a discussion. I've always been in favor of the box curbs. Thornridge is a little bit unique in the width and how many people traverse it. And even though we're going to widen it, when you widen it with the box curbs, it might not feel like it's been widened, if that makes sense, because the box curbs, no one's parking their car, tire on the curb. So I think that's also a discussion we should have, whether it should be engineered to have roll curbs or box curbs. And I know how Mr. Albrink feels. So, but I kind of agree with him. I just think it's worthy of a discussion based on it's a unique street. So that was the one other area I wanted to.
Concerning that Thornridge Drive, that we got the grant, it was being held up. Is that the status of the motion on that? Is it going to come sooner or later? I know they were holding up some of those grant monies.
It's been okay to move forward. So I just got the project agreements. Sabrina, side note, I have Post-it notes where you need to sign on Diane's desk, but we're allowed to move forward with that project and the storm sewer on Hunt Road. Hunt Road will be done sooner than Thornridge. Timeline reality is most likely if the earliest we would start would be in the spring of next year, and that might just be tree removal, some of the curbs and catch basins first, but it would most likely be done next summer, so the summer of 2021.
And that sewer project, is that at Hiley?
Yes.
Go ahead, Ms. Adichigo.
I just had a quick question about the trees. Is there anything included in the grant money to replace them with smaller trees?
No.
Okay.
We're not allowed. That's not. I'm pretty sure that's not an allowable expense through Ohio Public Works.
Okay.
So.
Anyone else have a question for?
That was the end of my
Mr.
report.
Ross? Yes.
Yeah.
Did you have something, Mr. Gertz?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I've gotten some scuttlebutt through Mr. Ashbrook that the Port Authority is going to be doing something up with the Formica property. Are you familiar with all of that, Mr. Ross?
A little bit, yes.
I think
I'm not. I haven't seen any plans of what they're doing, but I know it involves some development. But but I don't want to speak on behalf of the port for what they're doing or not doing.
Well, I think it's imperative that our economic development director get involved because of the fact that PNC is not all that far away from where that's going to happen.
Oh, she has been in conversations with, if you recall, Melissa Johnson, who came out to the council. She's been in several conversations with Melissa. And we just had an update on one a couple weeks ago with them because.
Are you talking about ours at PNC? Our goals that we want to do something on that property that the Port Authority purchased with PNC, Carlisle Chemical, whatever you want to call that tract of land up there that we built the road into. So are you talking about the Port Authority's involvement with Formica property in Evendale?
I'm talking that they kind of go together a little bit with the Port Authority's ultimate goal there.
I think it would be imperative that we be kept informed. Maybe you could bring these people in, the economic development director, and tell us, because there's scuttlebutt that they want to, which I think is a great idea, extend Cooper Road on over towards the GE properties, maybe at some future date. I know Bob was talking about that at one time, trying to acquire some land that actually is GE's property that they made fallow territory that they don't use, and combine that with a way to get a road to Cabot Drive possibly someday. So I think it's important that I think at least, you maybe bring these people in, let council be aware of what's going on, or at least if any progress is being made. So can you make arrangements for that?
Sure. I'm not exactly sure what you're.
Well, I'd like to know what the goals are, because we got a tract of land up there that the Port Authority, we don't, the Port Authority acquired it. And I want to be fully cooperative in trying to get, because right now it's nothing but an attractive nuisance with all the debris and building that's vacant. It's to me, it's a.
Yeah, we've been in a lot of contact with them still, even though, and our economic or our environmental consultant that we had the EPA grant with was Environmental Design Group. They have, because they did such good work for us and brought a lot of information for the port has now retained them and Matt Montecalvo to continue doing environmental remediation that the port will now be the ones paying for. So we have remained in
our property, or not our property, but the property. It's in the city of Reading, correct?
Yes, but they've talked to us and let us know their potential. I don't like to speak on it because I don't know if the port would want me to speak on anything publicly. So that's why I'm not trying to not answer you, but I'm also trying to respect whether or not things are public that the port is doing. So I'm not trying to not answer, but it's not my spot to answer on behalf of them.
As the safety director and the service director, if that's an attractive nuisance up there with a building that's, to me, the windows are blown out, knocked out, and who knows what could happen at the old building, at the office building. I think we need, as the city, especially since it's in my ward, I want to see something done to clean up the area, So if you could get some data and we'll have an executive session, maybe you can do that on a Zoom meeting as an executive session of some sort. I'd really like to know what's going on up there and find out what's happening. So that was one thing. Another thing, I think it was good that we got to meet the superintendent of the schools, but I think it would be very helpful. I mean, we've got a new police chief, and I don't know why he couldn't be brought on here. Maybe you could do that at the next meeting. I think to introduce him, and he could, many of us know him already, but at the same time, he could tell us of his goals and ambitions and how he wants to redirect the police department, especially in the world we live in today where the crazies want to try to defund the police department. I think we have an excellent police department. They do a fine job, and I don't want to get anybody of the opinion that we want to go in any kind of crazy direction like that. And therefore, I'd like the public to become more familiar with the people to whom they can talk about police, how they operate, what they do, what we can do, how we can help them. Could you make arrangements to get the police?
Yeah, the chief, I'll have him come on the next meeting.
All right. And then much to my chagrin, you had a water main break on Benson again, and you got lines all marked up on that new street where what's going up in there? Gas lines or something? There's all yellow marks on it again.
Up by Mount Notre Dame.
That's actually down by closer to Hill Street.
That one I'm not 100% sure on, but up the street that is gas main work that RLA was doing.
It's kind of frustrating because it was brought up when we were doing that project up there that maybe we should have gone ahead and tapped. We had an opportunity to investigate tapping a water main from up at Columbia and Benson and running it down. I know you opted out for that, but now it's actually, because then another water main break, we get into winter, I think we're going to have more trouble. So I don't know what, I think it was going to run parallel down through the, not even in the roadway as the way it was discussed, was it not?
And there was, it was never decided where it would have been if a new water main was to go in there.
Well, if we continue to have water main breaks, it's going to cost us more than if we had put the new main down through there. Plus, if we ever want to develop the top of Hill Street, we're going to need something stronger to bring down. If it comes that way, I don't know whether we would service Hill Street from Benson or you come at the end of Maple Drive, but one way or the other, I'd hopefully like to see that property develop someday up there. And it's going to have improved water mains. Maybe we should revisit that, I would hope. And also, I wanted to ask you about, I noticed on Laurie Lane and up around Maple Drive, there was a lot of apparently trees taken down and stumps. Are we doing a stump program, or is that something to do with the Duke?
No, that was our crew doing that. So I don't know how many times a year, but they wait until they have a list of stumps in the right of way because we don't own the piece of equipment that grinds them. So they wait until they have enough stumps to make it worthwhile to rent the piece of equipment to grind the stumps.
So we took trees as well. We took those down, did we?
Some of the dead trees, yes. Okay. Yeah, if they're dead trees in the right of way, Daryl's guys have taken those down before.
All right, and I was told by Mr. Feldman that they're moving the proposed gas main from the east side of Market Street down towards Mechanic to the west side. Are you familiar with that happening? Is that their goal? They got a real hopscotch thing where that was just recently done too, a few years back, but they got about 4 or 5 patches now at Mechanic and Market. Is that going to be the end of the job they're going to do with those patches, or are they going to eventually? I'd like to see the thing happen. I'd like to see the pipeline never be built, but it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. So if they're going to move it to the west side of the street, looks like they're going to be taking a lot of people's right of way at their property. I guess will be taken on Market Street there. And then is that all going to be paved curb to curb when they put this new pipe in? Do you know?
Yes, part of their street opening permit requirement was paving curb to curb. Okay. For the entire length of the project through Reading.
Okay, that's good to know. And then are they going to move the pipeline from the west side?
I don't have the plans on me, but I believe they had to move it because of to go around the box culvert. But I don't want to be quoted on that because I don't have the plans in front of me. But that was what they were doing down there a month or so ago, is identifying the precise location of our box culvert at Mechanic and Market. So
the new box culvert we built there about 8 years ago, so I don't want to see them disturb that either. How are they going to do that? Do you know?
How are they going to construct it?
Are they going under the whole box culvert, or are they?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
I don't want to see them cause any disruption. That was a problem we've had. That was a real, that drains all the way from the other side of the property there on Columbia Avenue, to the railroad track where the chicken facility restaurant is. So I don't want to jeopardize creating a new, blockage there of some sort. So I guess if you could look into that and let me know, I'd appreciate it.
Yep.
And then the other thing I had, it's only been a few years, but are they ever going to take those poles down on Jefferson Avenue that don't have any wires on them? Did you hear me?
No, I'm sorry. I was writing a note to myself.
Are they ever going to, they still have those poles on Jefferson Avenue that there's no wires attached? They've been that way for several years. Do you know if I think it's a telephone pole, actually. There's one. I think there's two of them, actually. If they could.
Yeah, I think I'll try to get a hold of Cincinnati Bell, which they don't have a contact person like Duke does, but I will try to get a hold of, I believe it's Ted Heckman. So I'll get a hold of Ted and ask him to get some movement on that.
You don't have our auger truck or any of those anymore? I guess they're all gone, aren't they?
Yeah, I don't believe so.
Yeah, it's just an eyesore. I think it ought to go. The street looks pretty good. And when do we have to gather up our new proposals for street improvements for the next go round with the state? Is that coming up soon?
The application usually is in, I believe the application's usually been due sometime in mid-September for the next round of applications.
Well, before we leap at it, I hope you will present to a council what your goals and ambitions are, which streets we're going to look at.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, and we're open for that.
All of Jefferson Avenue is, I think, finished down to Kaler Avenue, and it's just that last section that probably ought to be looked at. And then, of course, everybody's got their own in their own ward, I'm sure, but Pearl Street and some of Upper Pike Street could be looked at, I think. So anyway.
Okay.
All the questions I have right now, but maybe I can text you and we'll try to communicate on them. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Ross. Law Director, Mr. Stevenson.
Thanks, Chris. I got a couple things tonight. There's a resolution later this evening regarding the bankruptcy case in the Southern District of New York involving the OxyContin litigation. The application has been filed. I went ahead and did that after I contacted all the council and got their assent. The chances of us getting any real money out of this are slim and probably none. It actually hit my desk as a result of a communication I got from another law director. I don't remember seeing the notice on this. And it may have come even as late as last year because these class action things come and go. The other thing that I wanted to talk a little bit about is the mayor's court revenue for the first 6 months, not unexpectedly, is down about $51,000. It is picking back up and will probably pick up for the rest of the year. But as we're now having courts 3 times a month as opposed to not having them at all. But I wanted to let you know that is out there. The last thing I want to talk a little bit about, I got a question today because Duke has applied for permits in Reading to move utilities ahead of their pipeline project. So some of that construction may be going on. We asked for a stay of the construction of the pipeline pending the resolution of our appeal. The Supreme Court denied that, and they did that in a 1-sentence entry a couple of weeks ago. So the Duke is not prohibited from going ahead with their preliminary construction. So to the extent that you see Duke doing some construction in town that's related to the pipeline, it's perfectly legit. So that's where we are on that.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Mr. Stevenson.
Chris,
go ahead.
Sorry, this is not for, this is, I just realized Mr. Enix is still sitting on the Zoom with us. And
yes.
I don't think anybody else probably realized it either. So I wanted to say you don't have to stay on if you do want to.
Yeah. Yeah. This would probably be a good time now that we've invited you to allow you to go if you want to go.
Well, I appreciate that.
This is actually going to be one of our longest meetings of the year, I think.
Well, There is a board presentation I'm trying to get ready for tomorrow. So if it's okay with all of you that I sign off, I will do so. And
Thank you very much.
I appreciate you
Thanks for
allowing me
coming.
to join you tonight. Thank you so much.
Maybe we can do a once a year update from you too on the schools.
I'm happy to do that anytime.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick, for that. Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. And then I'll go to Treasurer, Mr. Gertz.
Thanks, Chris. Just a brief update of where we're at month to date in our income tax receipts. We've collected almost $685,000 this month. So we are running ahead of where we were at this time in last year in July. But as you know, everything was extended. It was a long week last week. We are still in the process of trying to process all of the tax filings that we received last week. So there's still a lot of work to do. So hopefully before the end of the month, we're going to have a little better picture of where we are. But the good news is as the end of June, we were $559,000 behind in total year to date as compared to last year. Right now, as of today, we're sitting at $410,000 behind. So we have picked up roughly $150,000 over the last couple, 3 weeks. So we're going in the right direction. I'll keep you all posted. And we're going to have another, obviously our next meeting will have the monthly report for July. So everybody will get an update. So that's really all I've got for tonight. And just one other thing, if anybody still has not filed their taxes, please do so as quickly as possible, because one of our next steps is to go through and figure out who has not filed and start corresponding, et cetera, et cetera. And
there's clemency for a little longer?
There is no clemency. People had 3 longer. No, I mean, I'm serious. I said that 2 weeks ago. Yeah, I mean, there is no clemency. Everybody had 3 additional months to figure out how to pay their taxes and to file taxes. So there will be penalties. There will be interest. That's the name of the game at this point in time. And that's all I've got, unless anybody has any questions.
Well, thank you, Mr. Gertz. And then Auditor, Ms. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just have a couple of updates to go off of what Mel said with the income. We're still doing our calls to kind of gauge our temperature for our finances. As far as the expenditure goes, in our general fund and our city earnings tax fund, we have about $1 million total, and that's with all payrolls done for July. I will be paying a bunch of bills, and also the auditor, the treasurer side, of course, is going to bring in more money through the end of the month to get things caught up. So I just wanted to let everybody know that's where I'm at. I'm pretty much caught up on all the bills. I've got a little stack for both the easy and hard pays over here that I'm doing. So I've got that going on. Dave, Patrick, and I are trying to finish up the audit questions that were from the year 2000. So, or a little bit earlier and a little bit later than that. So once that's done, everything else looks good for the audit. So I want to thank all the department heads and everybody that, works with purchasing or bringing money in, and everybody on the administration side, because can't wait to finally clap it out. But we're excited that it was a good audit once again. So that's it for me, Chris. Thank you.
Okay. Everyone okay with that? Thank you, Ms. Smith. I'm going to go back to new business. I think Mr. Powell said you had something, and there was someone else earlier than that, but go ahead if you had something, Mr. Powell.
I just wanted to bring everybody up to date on the development on Averly Village's north site. I attended virtually the Board of Zoning Appeals meeting here. It would have been last Wednesday on that. And they had a couple of variances that Amberley ultimately approved to that. But probably the biggest thing to point out to people in the 700 block of Maple Drive, what exactly is going on behind there. It is going to be a Lewis Animal Hospital. It's to replace, it's my understanding, the facility on Galbraith Road that I think is going away because of the Through the Valley project on I-75. Kind of from my perspective, when I reviewed the site plan, the biggest things that I found that were objectionable was a sign on the north side of the building that actually faced the houses advertising the animal hospital. I didn't care for that. But probably the biggest thing was the 22 outdoor kennels that are on the east side of the building. It's immediately west of the Mercy site, and it's just my fear with those outdoor kennels that we're here on Maple Drive where I live, and you know, quite a few other people live. We're going to experience a lot of noise from those kennels. Amberly and the architect assured us that, you know, it wasn't, but I'm skeptical. We'll put it that way.
Okay. I think Mr. Gertz, you may have had some other business you wanted to discuss.
Well, I covered most of them, I think, with the safety service director, to be frank with you. I don't know that I have any others right now. I'm sure I'll think
That's good.
That's all I
Chris,
have.
I had something.
You have something?
I had something, Chris.
Yes, okay.
I mentioned earlier, our partner, Rumpke Waste and Recycling, was named one of the 2020 U.S. Best Managed Companies. The award, sponsored by Deloitte Private and the Wall Street Journal, recognizes the best managed private companies in the country. They won this award competing with nearly 500 other companies, and part of it is that you have to be at least $250 million. So this is quite an award. They were one of 27 that was honored, and I just want to throw out the congratulations to Rumpke. And on the same note, be kind to your drivers. It's very hot. I know I occasionally brought a bottle of water out, and very well accepted.
Okay.
They're
good idea.
They're one of the group that's very an unsung hero at this time.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Chris,
Anyone else with new business?
I do, Chris.
Go ahead, Mr. Fish-Escher.
Yeah, I just wanted to make mention that Reading's lost, some good people over the past few weeks. And I want to extend my sympathy to the families of Ruth Jarashi, Bill Waller, Larry Roy, and this week, Jason Campbell. All of them were, I knew 3 of the 4 very well, and all were great Reading people.
Okay, thank you. Mr.
Chris,
Ross,
can I
did you
say one more thing?
Go ahead. Mr. Lindeman, go ahead.
I just wanted to wish the fire chief, a speedy recovery. I saw him just today or yesterday, and it's the first time I'd spoken to him since his surgery. So I just hope that he gets well very fast.
Okay. Mr. Ross, did you have something?
Yes, sorry. I had a conversation 2 or 3 weeks ago with ODOT regarding the Through the Valley. So I wanted to give everybody an update that I have from that. So right now they're doing the phase that's right by GE. They said that next year, 2021, they'll be starting the phase that goes basically from GE to 275. Then they said the section that is the 75 Ronald Reagan, the change that's going to come there, that will start in 2023. That's their slated start. And if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, the plan is to make the is it called a diamond interchange? it basically have 75 and Ronald Reagan where you can get on. Now you have to get off to get on. So that will be started in 2023. Now the section in the middle, it's actually it's considered 3 phases. Initially, they were looking to do basically keep the split, the north-south split, to keep that in place, and then do all their construction as far as that goes. As they've been looking into it a little bit more, this is according to ODOT, that the construction alone on the northbound lane, which is the one that goes over top where Bridge House is and former SOS, that area right there, or the Mill Creek as well. There are a lot of difficulties, engineering difficulties they mentioned. One of them alone is just the utilities. It would take, I think they said 3 years just for utility relocation, and that the southbound lane would be north and southbound for 6 years total. So they're looking, having looked into that, they've looked into a different alternative, and they're going to hire a consultant later this year to look into this. The consultant will probably take 2 years. Basically, they think they have enough room on what is currently the southbound side of 75 to put in north and southbound on that lane. The biggest, one of the bigger pieces for us, because I know there's been a concern getting rid of the Davis Street exit as part of that. Their preliminary look at redoing it and their new design would have an exit, and I think this would be beneficial to Reading. It would get off right there. If you're familiar with Lock Street, it's just 1 block south of Wyoming Avenue, also Benson. So there would be an exit right there, basically right onto Wyoming Avenue. So for Reading residents, you could get off right there in Laughlin and make a right, and you're right on Benson. Now, having said that, I asked them any timeline, and they said earliest construction start for that would be 2029. So I know I'm telling you guys stuff way out in advance, but
closer and closer to my retirement.
But that's the update that I have from them now. They wanted to get with myself and I think someone from Laughlin, and because we're the 2 jurisdictions impacted most by their changes. But like they said, they'll be hiring a consultant that will be studying this option, and preliminarily the ODOT officials like this because they said this option is not only is a little bit easier to construct, but it's also about $60 million cheaper. So, and he said, well, since we don't even have funding for that section yet, that helps us get closer. So that's an update I have right now for the Through the Valley project. I know it's something that's been going on for many, many years and will be for many, many years. But here in the next year, they'll be starting the section north of where they're at now. And then 2023, they'll be starting the I-75 Ronald Reagan interchange. So, and that is a little bit closer. So,
Mr. Milgertz.
Yeah, just a comment, Patrick, and I'm sure you've thought about this already, but there's so many places where they've done the expressway improvements and everybody's putting up, welcome to city of Cincinnati, or welcome to this, welcome to that. I hope we could put up a welcome to the city of Reading sign on one of these overpasses during this construction over the next several years.
I don't know about that, but I did ask them about putting signs that would on their exit, where you would exit into Laughlin, but pointing them towards Reading. And he said that ODOT he gave me the name of the group that handles that, but he said that that's definitely a reasonable ask to have signage put in that would be directing people to the city of Reading, from that exit. And if we wanted to put, Prattle District or St. Pierre and Paul, those things could be added as well.
Am I correct? I said, am I correct that the Shepherd Lane bridge looks like it's complete, part of it's open? Do you know if that's correct?
I don't know that. I don't.
Today, but
It is open.
I thought it was open.
Okay.
Any other business? Then we will go to reading of resolutions. Any other new business, that is? The first resolution there, Carla.
Okay, a resolution approving the steps taken by the law director to protect the interests of the city of Reading in certain bankruptcy proceedings in the United States Bankruptcy Court for the Southern District of New York.
Motion to suspend the rules requiring a second, third reading.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Albrecht, seconded by Mr. Fischheiser to suspend the rule that requires a second and third reading for this resolution. Roll call.
Mr. Powell,
Yes.
Mr. Gertz,
Yes.
Mr. Lynn,
Yes.
Mr. Albrecht,
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman,
Yes.
Mr. Fischheiser,
Yes.
Mrs. Edichico.
Yes,
Motion passed.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
I'll second.
Motion made by Mr. Fischheiser. I'm going to go to second by Mrs. Edichico to adopt the resolution. Roll call.
Mr. Powell,
Yes.
Mr. Gertz,
Yes.
Mr. Lynn,
Yes.
Mr. Albrecht,
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman,
Yes.
Mr. Fischheiser,
Yes.
Mrs. Edichico.
Yes,
That resolution is adopted in the resolution number.
2020-29R.
Okay, our second reading of the first ordinance.
An ordinance authorizing the safety service director to purchase a Turf Tiger lawnmower and 3 drinking fountains and declaring an emergency.
Motion to suspend the rule requiring a second and third reading.
I'll second.
Third reading.
Did I did I hear anybody in there want to make a comment? I thought I might have heard that. I heard Mr. Fischheiser make a motion. I heard about 4 people say. So does somebody want to raise their hand?
Second.
Okay. Second by Mr. Albrecht to suspend the rule that requires a third reading. Roll call.
Mr. Powell,
Yes.
Mr. Gertz.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Mr. Lynn,
Yes.
Mr. Albrecht,
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman,
Yes.
Mr. Fischheiser,
Yes.
Mrs. Edichico.
yes,
That motion passed.
Motion to adopt.
I'll second.
Motion made by, I'm going to guess, Mr. Albrecht. Second by Ms. Edichico to adopt the ordinance. Roll call.
Mr. Powell,
Yes.
Mr. Gertz,
Yes.
Mr. Lynn,
Yes.
Mr. Albrecht,
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman,
Yes.
Mr. Fischheiser,
Yes.
Mrs. Edichico.
Mrs. Edichico.
Yes,
Oh, sorry. I don't know what's going on. Okay.
It's after 9 o'clock. That's what's going on. That ordinance is,
It's adopted.
heck, it's adopted. Yeah. Ordinance number.
2020-30.
Thank you for keeping me straight there, Carla. And our second ordinance, it's a second reading.
The following budget for the calendar year beginning January 1st, 2021 has been adopted by council and is hereby submitted for consideration for the Hamilton County Budget Commission.
Motion to suspend the rule requiring a third reading.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Fischheiser, second by Mr. Albrecht to suspend the rule that requires a third reading. Roll call.
Mr. Powell,
Yes.
Mr. Gertz,
Yes.
Mr. Lynn,
Yes.
Mr. Albrecht,
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman,
Yes.
Mr. Fish-Escher,
Yes.
Mrs. Edichico.
Yes.
That motion passed.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Lynn, second by Mr. Fish-Escher to adopt the ordinance. Roll call?
Mr. Powell,
Yes.
Mr. Gertz,
Yes.
Mr. Lynn,
Yes.
Mr. Albrecht,
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman,
Yes.
Mr. Fish-Escher,
Yes.
Mrs. Edichico.
Yes.
The ordinance is adopted. Ordinance number.
2020-31.
And then the new ordinance for the computers. First reading.
An ordinance authorizing the Safety Service Director to hire Slingshot Solutions for the purpose of various departments' IT improvements for an amount not to exceed $35,000 and declaring an emergency.
Motion to suspend the second and third reading?
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Edichico, second by Mr. Fish-Escher to suspend the rule that requires a second and third reading. Roll call?
Mr. Powell,
Yes.
Mr. Gertz,
Yes.
Mr. Lynn,
Yes.
Mr. Albrecht,
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman, Fish-Escher,
Yes.
Mrs. Edichico.
Yes.
That motion passed.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Second.
Motion made by, I think, Mr. Powell,
Albrecht.
Albrecht,
Mr. Albrecht. You got to keep your head up. I can't see your lips moving. Seconded by Mr. who?
Lindeman.
Mr. Lindeman.
Thank you.
It's,
Mr.
you know,
Powell.
I don't know if anybody has an audio problem tonight, but everybody's been kind of, it's been on all, I've got my mic turned all the way up and I still can't hear very well. Maybe it's something in my ears. I don't know.
Mr.
Made
Powell,
by Mr. Albrecht, second by Mr.
Yes.
Lindeman to adopt the resolution, to adopt the ordinance. Roll call?
Mr. Powell,
Yes.
Mr. Gertz,
Yes.
Mr. Lynn,
Yes.
Mr. Albrecht,
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman,
Yes.
Mr. Fish-Escher,
Yes.
Mrs. Edichico.
Yes.
The ordinance is adopted. The ordinance number?
2020-32.
Sabrina, do you know when this work's going to start?
It probably should start pretty soon. Patrick, just jump back on if you want to comment too. We need it really bad. So I think we've talked to all the players in the group to make sure that we can go forward after this, and we're just waiting for this to get approval.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you. Any other business?
Opening day, Friday. Thank God for baseball.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I heard 3 of them took a knee already for the national anthem.
Baseball? For
Pretty
baseball?
hot.
Baseball players are doing it now?
Yep, baseball players.
I ain't
Yep.
watching any more
Reds.
baseball. I'm done with baseball.
Reds baseball players.
I'm done with them.
Well, I think a lot of America is going to be done with that type of a recreational activity. So,
Well, they don't get paid enough, I guess.
all right. Well, thank you very much for the long meeting, and we'll do it again in 2 weeks. I do have one thing I want to bring up. I've been talking with Jason Dudley at ICRC. He has, from some of the discussion about audience participation, other communities are doing a little bit differently. There's one method is to use it as a webinar. In that case, what will happen is I will need to send everyone's email address to ICRC, and he will send out individual, automated, of course, invites with your own code to the people who are normally on council. Then there will be a second link to allow public to watch the proceedings. And then there would be a registration link part of that where anyone who would like to talk to council and address council would then be able to fill out a very short registration, name, address, maybe topic, and then organization maybe. And then they would be part of the meeting and would be able to be recognized by myself and probably and maybe some others on council. I'm gonna make sure Randy can do it. And then once that portion of the meeting's over, we would not have to call on anyone for the rest of the meeting. So we're going to start that next week. So I may end up having a couple of ringers out in the audience. I may get a hold of Mr. Ashbrook to participate. Maybe Mr. Dunn, what's his Mound, to maybe call in, have maybe one or two people just to test the water, see how it works with the audience participating.
Maybe we could do something innovative and go back to the council chambers.
Well, that would be because most of the country, 99% of the country is not doing it. So it would be innovative.
I don't agree with you. Anyway,
that's okay.
Meeting over.
80% of the states are on the uptick. Pardon me?
It's getting worse.
I mean, I guess we're just going to go over this every week. If you want to, I guess that's just the way it's going to be. All right. Well, thank you very much for coming. I guess Tony has left the meeting. So have a good evening.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
See you guys. It's been a thrill, let me tell you.
Nice.
I'm my back. I got your back, Randy. Don't worry. This is not a democracy. This is my meeting.
Keep hearing Randy sort of honk, 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 honk.
Good night.
Good night.